Hey, Jimbo, you ready for this deal?
Prepare for takeoff, Cody.
Yeah, that's a new one.
Yeah.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, friends and neighbors. Time once again for the Cowboys of the Osage podcast with your host, Jimbo Snively and Cody Garnett. Now let's sing a little bit about it. Cowboys of the Osage, riding once again. Always got some time for a friend. And here they are, the Cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, the Buck and Flamingo Turquoise Shop, both located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. I forgot about Shorty's Cowboy Hattery, the official hat of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast. Hey, it's old Cody over here, and as always, I have my main man with me, Mr. Rodeo Historian himself, Jimbo Snively. Morning, Jimbo. How you doing? Who are we talking to?
Hey, Cody boy, it's another great day in the Osage, man. And Cody, we really got it going on today. We've got Vannie Halliday and his sister, Kay Moses. And you talk about some rodeo history now. Vannie had a rodeo company, Halliday Rodeo Company, and then he worked for Harry Vold for like 20 years. He worked for Mac Altizer. You talk about some stories now, and grew up out in New Mexico, him and his sister. And
yeah, their parents had a rodeo company.
Yeah, right.
Rodeo's in these people's blood.
His sister Kay, we think, is the first lady to ever pick up broncs at a rodeo. So that's pretty good right there.
That's right.
So we've got a bunch of stories to get to, so we're going to get right to it. Guys, welcome to the Cowboys Osage podcast.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you.
I didn't know I was going to be here.
And thank you for driving all the way up here.
Yep, we suckered her in.
Yeah, it's kind of a trap, but
I'm pretty good at about doing that to my sister.
Everybody knew she was going to do it except for her.
Correct.
Yeah. So where'd you grow up at?
We grew up all over New Mexico. We lived in Tier C for a while, and then when we got in the rodeo business, we moved back over to the east side of the state, Clovis, Elida.
Right. What kind of country is that out there? Pretty sparse?
A lot of ranch country.
Just big ranch country mostly?
Yeah.
A lot of acres, big ranches?
Yes, big ranches. 40 sections, 60 sections.
Right. Wow. I've always heard so much about that Clovis sale. Cody talks about it all the time, that horse sale. What made it so big? Is that the center of the universe for horses, or what's the deal? It just seemed like all you ever hear about used to was the Clovis horse sale.
And I think they just made it that way because ever since I was a kid, I can remember it was a big deal to go to Clovis horse sale. And like we'd see Cody's granddad, he rode every dang horse through that thing. I think he's one of the guys known for riding the most horses in a year or something.
Right.
But
what was that? I've Got a Seeker. What was that show he was on, Cody? Something?
To Tell the Truth. He was on To Tell the Truth.
Yeah.
And they claimed that he had rode more horses than any man alive at that time. So
I bet he did.
Yeah, he would after a sale, I think he told me he made like $1 a head to ride them through, and he'd have a check for $1,000 after a sale or some crazy thing. Wow. From what I understand, heck, in the early days, that Clovis horse sale, it's just a special sale now, a catalog sale. But when it was the Clovis horse sale, heck, they'd sell horses for 24 hours straight, wouldn't they, Vannie?
all the time. I think a lot of it is just east of there and north. You got so many feedlots, and all them cowboys would want to make a little extra money, so they ride all them horses in them feedlots and doctoring wheat cattle. and then they need some money, they'd take them to Clovis for that horse sale. And there was a lot of horses come out of that Panhandle right to Clovis to that sale.
Jimbo, one of my granddads was the barn rider, and my great granddad, he was a big horse buyer out of there, Clifford Barns. Did you ever know Clifford?
Yes, sir.
So my family was working both ends of that deal, and then after Clifford kind of got out of the horse business or died, my grandpa Dale, he took over buying a lot of horses out in that country.
I always tell people you're double-bred horse trader.
Yeah, seems like it.
He is.
Well, did you grow up wanting to be a cowboy then, I guess? It's just natural?
I didn't know anything different. My dad used to work for a guy named Dick Ratchin from Happy, Texas. And my dad picked up and did what Dick needed for them rodeos Dick had. And then was it 72 or 73 he decided to sell out when we bought it?
It's be 72, because I was probably in 8th grade,
Yeah.
around there.
They used to have a jackpot steer roping at Happy.
Big one.
Big one.
Yeah.
Wesley Sims Memorial Steer Roping and calf roping.
Joe won it, I think, in 72. Matter of fact, he got the saddle.
I won that booger too, Jimbo.
Really?
Yeah.
That's another big arena there.
It was a big arena. I think they still have a jackpot roping there.
Yeah.
They're just trying to keep it going.
I was there one year, it was maybe 73. Shote Webster won it, and he was pretty well done, but he came back and was roping pretty good, but having trouble with his hip and couldn't get around like he used to, but he won it. And what I remember, Toots Mansfield was flagging. I thought, man, that's pretty cool. Watch Shote Winter roping and Toots Mansfield flagging.
Well, that is a big old arena they got over there at Happy.
Yeah.
And dusty, too. Big and dusty booger.
Yeah. Of course, that's where Tuffy Thompson lived.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bill Pearson, a guy named Bill Pearson that won the Ben Johnson here one time.
I remember Bill.
He lived there, too. Pretty good steer roper.
Yeah, sure was. Absolutely.
He kept that roping going for a long time after it.
Really?
And I don't know who's doing it now. There's some boys right around
Is it
there.
still going?
I believe it's still going, Jimbo.
I think Larry helps him. He lives there in Canyon, but he trips steers.
Oh, Dugan?
Yeah.
And Tulia, Texas is right there too, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's just south of
South of it, yeah.
Ain't Tom Timberlake from around Tulia, Texas somewhere?
Hereford.
Why would you have to bring up that guy?
Well,
You were
like
talking
Tom
about
Timberlake.
outlaws. That was one of them.
I always liked Tom Timberlake. He was the only guy I saw show up at a steer open riding an app horse, and a damn good app horse. I tell you that right now. You could have made the national finals. Somebody could have.
Well, did you do any roping or anything, or bronc
Yeah,
riding?
I roped and rode bareback horses, and we just got into production. I mean, when we bought that company, we had a lot of rodeos over on the west side of New Mexico, and then we started getting all the ones Dick had over in the Panhandle. So a lot of times we were doing 2 rodeos a weekend. Mom and Dad would split us up. Kay and Dad would go to one, and me and Mom would go to another.
Wow.
And we did that for
Times when school would let out, we wouldn't be home till school started because we'd be going all the time.
Did you get to run any barrels or anything, or just have to work all the time?
Oh, I ran a little, but mostly work. I mean, when you're in the rodeo
Yeah,
stock,
you haven't got time.
You don't have time. Plus, I usually got the rejects. Whatever quit
Right,
bucking is
right.
what became my barrel horse
Right.
or whatever. So I didn't always have the best mount. So
Yeah. Whatever got turned out at the Clovis horse sale, you got it.
right.
Who were some of the guys rodeoing back then that are probably just true blue legends now that you going to y'all's rodeos?
Well, I grew up with Tuff and Roach and Cody Lambert, and they're all my age. Felton boys, I don't know if you know the Felton.
Oh, yeah. David Felton.
All 3 of them could rope. David, Neil, they all could rope really good.
We sold David a little yellow horse one time that he ended up making the national
Tripping.
finals steer open on.
Yeah, Tripping Horse is a nice one.
He was a nice horse, but boy howdy, I thought David would make a calf horse out of that little booger. He could get across that line quick.
Then we also grew up with the older people like Charles Good and Gary Good, and all of those lived around us in the Elida and Kenna area.
Sonny Davis
Sonny,
was around us.
You mentioned Glenn Franklin earlier.
Yeah, Glenn married our cousin, Jimmy Gale, And we've been with each other ever since. I mean,
Suppose Roy Cooper was entering the calf roping at
Roy, Clay Tom, they were down there. Sylvester Mayfield.
Bobby Brown, I bet, may have been entering the saddle bronc riding, huh?
Some, not as much. Your dad, there was a bronc rider. Rocky could ride broncs with the best of them. I still remember him when we were come to our rodeos.
Yeah.
He'd win a lot of our rodeos.
Our dad, he had all kinds, amateur, high school, all girls. And I can remember that we had an all-girl rodeo at Melrose, New Mexico. And he was bringing in fresh Bramer calves. And they were, didn't get to run them through but once, I think. And Betty Gale Cooper was there.
Oh, wow.
And she could rope, but she was giving my dad such a hard time because the calves were so fresh, and she went out there and tied one in 10 or something. It was just smoking fast.
Wow.
But I can remember stuff like that with them.
I didn't know Melrose was big enough to have a rodeo grounds over there.
Oh, they
Had a big one.
Yeah.
Really?
They had a big arena too.
My uncle used to run a ranch in Melrose for, I don't know who he was working for. John, I don't know if you knew him. For the majority of their life, he was there in Melrose. It didn't, every time I went, didn't ever seem like I ever saw a town over there near Melrose.
New Mexico got a great history of rodeo cowboys. Going all the way back to like Jake McClure was a great calf roper, and then Troy Fort, and just right on down the line. What was the reason for that? Just because it's just such ranching country and stuff, you think?
I think that's a lot of it. There's a lot of big ranches, and back then they needed every cowboy they could have to move the cattle and stuff. And they tell
Bob Crosby, that was another one. I left
Bob. We're from Elidas. That's
Right.
his country,
Right.
But my grandmother told me once, she said that back in the day, everybody get the cattle, and you had 4 groups. You had one in the north and one in the south, and everybody started, and they had their own wagon, their cook wagon. Well, they'd come and push everything to Elida, and when they got there, whoever got there first got to take the cattle down to the railroad pens, and they'd sort everybody's cattle off. And then the next bunch would come in. But it'd be like a month at them pushing all them cattle from everywhere. You just mixed everybody's cattle till you got to the railroad yard, and then you'd split them up and load them on the train, and they'd come to Kansas City.
What'd you ever hear about Bob Crosby?
My mom.
Anything you can tell.
My mom tells a story when she was a little girl, and my grandmother had 7 stores in Elida, and she had the grocery store, and Bob would come in there, and he'd make sure my mom was watching, and he'd put something in his pocket, or he'd hide something, and she'd run to my grandmother. He's stealing. But he'd pay on his way out.
Right.
But he just would drive my mom nuts doing that to her.
Him and Carl Arnold used to have some real famous match ropings out there. Mm-hmm. A lot of rodeo history there.
Yeah, there is.
Tuff and Jimmy Cooper, the dads to Jimmy and Roy. And
How'd Bob die, Jimbo?
He ran off in a ravine or something in a Jeep. And just, he was wild.
They said maybe that Jeep got to going too fast and shaking in the front end or something.
I bet it wasn't going fast enough to shoot him because he was crazy. He was wild.
To this day, right there where he died is, Bob Crosby Pass or something right there?
Bob Crosby Draw.
Bob Crosby
It's right
Draw.
next to the Pecos River. It's just about 3 miles east of the Pecos River when you go to Roswell or coming from Roswell.
They said he had a death wish roping, didn't they, Jimbo?
That's what Pake said. Said that Pake's granddad, John, said they used to be, back in the early days up in Pendleton, they'd be sitting out there during the bronc riding, and Bob would throw his leg over the saddle horn just like guys do, and they're just talking, and try to rope on them broncs when they come by or something. Said he had a wish to get killed in front of a large crowd. But isn't that something? And he had his leg broke his right leg broke like 5 or 6 times getting horse jerked down on him during the steer roping,
Yep. And they tried to cut it off, and he did his old Indian doctrine.
And my grandfather said he'd seen him sometimes before he'd tie a steer, cut several strands on his cinch and just leave 3 or 4 strands just to show people what a daredevil he was,
What was the old Indian doctrine on that, Vannie?
Yeah, he pulped us. He'd mix it and it smelled like cow shit.
It was
Probably was.
Yeah,
I think that's what he was using from what I read.
that's what my grandmother said. She told us some stories on him about him coming to the store, and he'd walk in and you could smell that through the whole hardware store, the grocery store. You could smell it on his leg. It kept him walking, I guess.
Yeah.
He cured him. He cured himself on it. Good.
I'm
Lord.
not sure it was a good cure, though. Did you ever see a picture of it?
Yeah, it's gnarly, man. It's gnarly.
Wow. Okay, how'd you get roped into picking up broncs?
It was a 4th of July rodeo in Capitan, New Mexico. I think I was 12 years old, and someone didn't show up. I don't know who it was. And so my dad didn't have anybody else to be a pickup man. So he threw me up on Lone Star, this bay horse that had no mouth because he fell in a gopher hole, and told me to just haze the horse to the other pickup man. And I think the first horse out, I got kicked, which was Gun Mall. And it just kind of started from there. I don't know that I was the first pickup woman or whatever, but I did it from the time I was 12 till I was about 19 when I went to college. And some of the rough stock riders liked to use me, and others would hang on to someone else come by. But Lone Star, he was kind of you had to stop him if you ran him into the fence. That's how you stopped him, because he had no mouth. And I can remember being at Amarillo at the little arena, indoor arena, that only had like 5 poles when they ran poles because it was so small. And I think I ran over like 3 people in one section, but there was no room and there was no way for him to stop.
Well, they got to get out of the way.
Yeah.
You're doing some business out there.
But it was interesting. I enjoyed it for a while till I had a bad wreck in Fort Sumner High School Rodeo, the first section. And back then we had like 3 sections of barebacks, and my horse, I was reaching across to the off flank to get the flank off, and my horse and the bareback horse got tangled up, and my horse rolled over the top of me, and then the bareback horse ran over me, and then the other pickup man ran over me, and I carried a horseshoe on my bicep for years. And that big old Fort Sumner was a sandy pin, and my dad, he come and he asked, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, nothing's broke, I'm okay. Get back on that horse." So all the women parents,
Pissed.
they were mad. It's
Did he
like,
say it's a long ways from your heart?
yes.
Yes.
We got a rodeo to do here.
Yeah.
So thank goodness I got back on, because if I hadn't, I probably would have never picked up again. But I still didn't like to do the off side, and I really didn't like doing saddle broncs after that either. But I got on by the second section. I was so sore, and there was Doc Mitchell from Tularosa, Alamogordo area. He was a chiropractor, and he said, "I don't know how you feel about chiropractors, but if you want, I'll work on you." And so he adjusted me, thank goodness. And so I didn't get as sore and crippled up as I could have been, because it was a pretty good wreck.
And there was another one with you too. Was that your sister or another woman pickup man?
No, that was a friend of mine from South Dakota, Roxy Holloway. She's
Okay, Holloway. I thought he said Holiday.
no, it's Holloway. And
Related to Chuck?
yeah, me and Chuck picked up together, but it's Chuck's sister.
Okay.
And when Chuck and TC were growing up riding broncs, Roxy picked up, and they had a rodeo company up there in South Dakota, and Roxy just kept picking up, and she was good at it.
There's have you seen those 2 girls on Facebook, Cody? I've seen them a time or 2.
Down in South America somewhere?
Yeah.
Or Mexico or something?
Yeah. What are you shaking your head about, Vannie?
Well, the object of picking up is to keep them horses moving and keep them safe. them girls from Mexico, they crowd them in there against the fence and stop them.
Yeah, that's what I saw him doing.
And if they do that, that gets the horse where he starts stopping all the time. He'll buck for a little bit, and then he knows when that horse comes to him, he's just going to stop. And whistle may not even blow yet. Well, if he stops, then they get a re-ride. So they want to do it, but they're not doing it correctly.
You said you didn't like to do saddle broncs. I thought saddle broncs would be easier because they've got that rein and stuff to get a hold of. It's not.
I didn't like dallying, which is funny because later in years, after I'm married and moved to Kansas and started team roping and stuff, you know, there's no problem. But back then, too much going on, I guess.
Right.
But,
Were you picking up broncs at that time too for the company, or?
No, I didn't start picking up. I picked up with Kay, I think, her last year.
we never did pick up very much
No,
together.
because Dad, we'd be split up.
I
Like
see.
I'd be at one rodeo and she'd be at another. And the only time we were really all together was like Capitan and Muscalero, but on the 4th. But I started picking up, and then she went off to college, and I just stayed picking up. And my dad and me pick up, and then Tough worked for my dad, Cody Lambert, all of them would come to the rodeos and enter in the events, and we'd all switch out. Roach would fight bulls, but we'd all switch out. Like if I was up or they were up, we'd take turns, and somebody else would get on the pickup horse. We just swapped out.
Tough Hedeman, he was riding broncs at that time,
Yeah.
too, wasn't he? I've seen some video of him riding broncs at Cheyenne, or heck, I may have seen him ride a bronc at Cheyenne when I was a
They
kid.
did everything. We had 4 horses that we did everything on. Bulldog, team rope, calf rope. We did everything on them. I had a yellow mare, and
That's always debatable. That was my mare.
that's my mare. But anyway, Roach had Hawkeye, a one-eyed horse that got off the track. We did everything on him. And Cody and them and Casey had this other horse. But they all would pick up and help my dad at the rodeo, and then they'd be competing at the same time.
Do you know Cody was kin to Shorty? They were
Yeah,
like
yeah, I
cousins
knew
or
that.
something. Yeah, I didn't know that till I met him down there at the Hall of Fame that weekend, and he said he was, I think, cousins to Shorty Garton.
There you go. Rodeo world's a small world.
No, it is. It's a small circle.
And that's what I like about it, is how it intertwines us all, because I was lucky and went off from my dad after a while, and I went to work for Harry, and I took this horse with me named Rusty, and he was the horse of the year and horse of the finals in 81. And I stayed with Harry after that.
Harry had a lot of horses of the years and bulls of the year, didn't he?
Necktie, Angel Sings, I'm No Savvy, or Wrangler Savvy, Alibi, which them 2 horses won it before Harry got them with Dale Hall. And then
Bobby Joe Skull.
Bobby Joe Skull.
I wrote down a few here. Painted Valley, Rusty, the Bull 777.
7.
Crooked Creek, of course, Crooked Nose, was a fighting bull.
Yep.
Wow, Panda was another bull.
That was one of Harry's good bulls back in the early days.
Now, did he have a breeding program where he raising a lot of these broncs? Is that how they come up?
Bronx, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of Canadian cows he got, and he had this one big Bramer bull, 45 purple people eater. And we couldn't take him, else we had a 10-foot fence, like Colorado Springs or El Paso. We had to have a big fence, and them guys hated getting on him. And then Harry turned him out with them cows, and then that's where we got Crooked Nose and the other purple people eater, 141, 148, all them Black Panther, all them Wrangler fighting bulls.
What were those deals like? What were those bulls like to handle?
Oh, they were
Vannie?
easy.
I saw you guys walking in the pen when I was a kid
Yeah.
with a bag of feeding Crooked Nose a foot. I'm like, what in the world is going on here?
Me and Scott Walton.
Yeah, Scotty. He's a good dude.
Yeah. Me and Scott were with Harry about the same time, all them years, and you could walk in there and you could talk to them. They'd come out however we wanted them. They were easy to work.
They knew when it was time to play rodeo, didn't
When
they?
you
And
put
it
them in
wasn't.
that chute,
Yeah.
the switch went off.
Right.
What about old Charlie? Remember Charlie?
Oh yeah, we had a bull. I know what story she wants to tell. We had a bull. He weighed 1.5 tons, and he had a baby calf head on
He's
him,
a Charlie.
and he's about that big a head. And we called him Charlie, Baby Huey. And he just kind of bucked, but so the story she wants me to tell is I went out with a wheelbarrow and I had salt and stuff, and I was putting out salt for the bulls. And he walked up behind me and stuck his head between my legs and picked me up. And he was just sitting there licking the salt, and there wasn't nothing I could do except scream bloody murder. And she's laughing at me.
Yeah, that always amazed me, those bulls, so mean looking on TV or you're in the arena and then see some little girl when they're home or something petting them, you're scratching her back or something.
Well, them 4 bulls never got bucked.
Yeah.
They were fighting bulls only.
Yeah.
Really?
That one year that Dad bought those 5 bulls or whatever that never had seen
When we
people.
gathered them from the government,
Yeah. Now those you couldn't walk in.
no.
Yeah.
They were bad.
The first time we seen them, you could throw your hand up and they'd go to the back side of the fence. About 30 minutes later, you throw your hand up, they'd all come to the fence. And they stayed that way all the years my dad had them. But they run up in a canyon up there off the Muscalero Apache Reservation up at Red Osa. And the government come in there was too many cattle in them canyons. And they were eating a lot of the feed the elk and the mule deer would eat. So they wanted to clear them out. Well, Dad had an open top straight that we could take the poles out of. So they darted all them bulls. And Dad's deal, instead of them paying him, he says, I want all the bulls. I think we got 45 bulls out of that deal, and they never seen a human in their life. And there were some that were 2 years old, and there's some probably 22 years old, But we got them all back, and at that time we had a bull named Sweet P1, big old black bull with horns that we raised, and he had a 1 dot right there. Well, there was a bull in this herd that we gathered. He is a big ball-faced bull, big horns, and he had 2 dots. They were no kin, but we called him Sweet P2. If you ever have Tough and Cody here, you ask them about him, because that's what they used to get on was them 2. Or Roach, she used to get hooked by him all the time.
You're talking about having to have 10-foot fences for a bull. Remember Hat Rack?
He jumped every fence we had.
Remember a trip at Capitan and Chiquita?
Yeah. He got out, and all around Capitan's registered Hereford ranches. Every one of them. And we got this big black Brangus bull. He jumped, and when he jumped the fence, there's people who would pay Dad for this to happen. There's a cop there that everybody hated. He stands there at the fence like this, goes, stop, stop. And that bull hit him face first, drilled him in the deal, and that bull went right down the highway, out the north end of town, and we didn't see him. About a week later, me and Dad,
It was just you two
yeah,
in the straight deck.
yeah. And I was on a little roan mare I had called Chiquita, and he wouldn't let me carry a rope. And I was the only one close enough to rope him.
How old were you, though?
7, 6.
You weren't very old.
Yeah. And we went off that hill, and I chased him down there, and this sucker went off a cliff that was like this. Down I went right after him. My dad screaming, no, stop. I got him, and I got him down there, and I don't know how we did it, but we got a rope on him, and he ran under the truck, and we were dallying around the drive line because that was the only place that was slick. everything else had edges on it. We finally worked him to the back and got him loaded up, and we had 25 horses in front. All we had was one spot for him in the back. We got him on there.
I can remember
They
when
changed the genetics in that whole area right there.
I can remember when he jumped out at Elida one year, and
He just went home.
no, the only thing that was around was my barrel horse and my barrel saddle, and Dad jumped on and tripped him in my barrel saddle.
Is it hard to handle those bulls? I mean, like hauling them and stuff together. A lot of them want to fight and stuff, or is that a problem?
If they were together all the time,
I see.
they're okay.
Right.
But when you put a new bull in there, they're going to get a pecking order, and they're going to tear up every fence you've got. And I had a great big chestnut horse, and he's a half brother to Gary Good's Little Red tripping horse. And Gary and Charles tried to buy him off of me, but I wouldn't sell him because that was my dragging horse. I'd drag anything you want. I get hooked to, he'd drag. But once you get them bulls together and they bend together and feed together, and there's no cows around, you're fine.
Watching the rodeos and stuff now, it seemed like they rope a lot of bulls and drag them out of the arena. Did you all do that, or was that necessary all the time, or why are they doing that so much?
Our dad, when we went to a rodeo, the first thing we did before the performance is we worked the livestock, bulls and barebacks, everything. We took them in and out 3 times to show them where the catch gate was.
Because I didn't think they did that when I was a kid so much, and now they just do it all the time. Cody, you've noticed that? They just rope them and drag them out.
I don't watch the bull riding that often, Jimbo.
Yeah,
to be honest
well.
with you.
Well, that's a secret. I mean, that's how we used to sort when I worked for Harry, is we'd turn all the horses out in the arena and let them roll and play and whatever. Then when we got ready to sort, we'd have the guys in the gate, and then somebody'd stand there at the gate and let them one at a time by. Well, that teaches them where the out gate is, plus it's easier to work them. Did the bulls the same way. But, you could only do like 4 or 5 bulls here and 4 or 5 bulls there, because you don't put a whole 20 bulls in one pen like you would do horses, because they'll tear up everything fighting. So.
Right.
And Vannie, he sorted a lot of cattle with a lot of good cowboys back in his early days too, I would assume. And,
I bet.
I would think that probably most people don't do it that way anymore.
There's some guys that still run their horses out, show them the out gate. It's mostly the horse guys. The bull guys, most of them bulls that they got now, them PBR bulls, they can't go very far anyway because the arena ain't that big.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah.
What do you think y'all's bucking horse herd would have been worth today?
I don't know.
Isn't that wild what a bucking horse is going for these days?
I'd like to have some of them we had back then, like Frank James and Rusty and Papoose. And
When y'all sold out, who ended up with all your stock?
well, our father died of an aneurysm, and we had all these rodeos. Mom and I come back from Harry's and was helping her, and she says, "I'm gonna keep it going." I said, "Okay." I says, "It's a lot of feed, And next year we sold everything because it was just too much for Mom, and she had some kids helping her, but it was just too much for her, so we got rid of everything.
I didn't know if one outfit took them all. Or
No, we kind of went to the bucking horse sale. We sold some of them to some private guys, like other stall contractors. And then the rest of it, we took to the bucking horse sale at Oklahoma City, or not Oklahoma City, but Vegas at that time.
Any of those genetics still going today on y'all's bucking string that you know of? No. I bet they probably are. If you got any studs or mares in on the deal.
No,
we didn't.
We didn't have any studs. Most of our horses, we just old spoiled ranch horses. Somebody bring a horse in they couldn't handle it, it ended up being a sour horse. Made a bucking horse.
A lot of people know who Harry Vold is and heard of him. One time, y'all came through town. They were having a pro rodeo there in our town, and Harry and everybody brought the stock, and they kept it at our house.
Hutchinson.
And, y'all hired me. I was a kid to help untie calves and strip broncs and stuff. And I was back there stripping broncs, and I'd watch Harry up there sitting on the fence, and to this day, I've never seen anyone get so tickled every time a bucking horse left the chute, his feet would just start. He'd just start jingling his spurs, and he's pedaling his feet the whole time on every single bronc, and it was just a pure joy on a person's face to watch a horse buck.
He didn't. He loved that more than anything. Was watching a good bronc and a good bronc rider. He didn't care if you rode his horse or not. He just wanted to see a good bronc ride. But he used to have a black horse he rode all the time. He had a bunch of them, but Salty was the one that got tortured the most. But he'd be sitting there on him in the arena during the bronc riding. And like me and Brad Churchill would be picking up, and a horse would buck, and I'd sit there and watch, the horse buck, but then I'd watch Harry, and he's sitting there riding the horse, and he's spurring a snot out of his horse, and his horse is trying to go, but he's pulling back, and he's trying to watch her. Finally, I told Karen, I said, he's spurring poor Salty to death every bronc ride, and I said...
He was riding that bronc too, wasn't he?
That poor black horse was getting it every bronc ride.
Yeah, he did, Jimbo. I mean, I remember it plain as day to this day. I was just a little old kid there, and I'd look up there, and he was riding right with those guys every jump.
He was a Canadian, wasn't he, originally from Canada?
From Alberta, Anoka, Alberta, Canada.
Now, did he have stock up in Canada first before he moved to Colorado?
Yeah, the stories Harry used to tell us is he would drive them from where he was at, Panoka, and drive them 50, 75 miles, then have a rodeo, buck them, then drive them back. And the first year he come back, he went to Panoka and says, I got some horses, you let me buck them? Oh, no, we got horses. Well, the guy that had the horses there, every one of them run off. They didn't have very good rodeo. So that guy come back to Harry. Harry told him, he says, I'll buck them for free if you let me buck them here at home. Guy come back. They put Harry's horses in the next day, and they went from there. But him and his brothers, there's 4 brothers, Norman, Ralph, Harry, and what was the oldest? Can't remember his name right now. But they drive them horses. Ralph didn't, but Norman and Harry and his other brother would.
Then when did he decide to go to Colorado?
I think he just come down. Harry Knight had a lot to do with that, and Harry Knight was from Canada.
Yeah.
And Harry Knight did a lot with Gene Autry. And
he's more in the center, in the right area of the country, and could just go, he's a lot better than...
Harry told the story to me one time that him, Harry Knight, and Gene Autry were on the train. And Gene Autry says, if you're going to come down here and rodeo, this is where you need to live. And he pointed to Pueblo.
Yeah.
And Harry says, I don't want to live in that desert. To him, that was a desert.
Right.
But once Harry learned how good that country was and how just a little rain will make that grass grow that far, he stayed there. He raised a lot of good horses.
Now, did you say he had a breeding program for his broncs? Mm-hmm. What did that... How long did it take to make a bronc? I mean, 4-year-old, 5-year-old?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, he had them turned out in different studs with different mares, and they'd run out there, and that stud would run them 30 or 40 mares. And then he'd have another pasture with another stud and run. And when I first went for work for him, he had Custer. And Custer goes back to the Tukes, I guess, and Custer raised them Custer mares. Harry sold Custer to Ike Sankey, and that made Ike Sankey's herd. Hank Francine bought a stud colt out of him, started his herd. So there's a lot of stock contractors that go back to that Custer, and it goes back to the Tukes.
That's a lot of colts to have to grow out. If you have to wait till they're 5 or 6 years old, what do they do with them? They just run loose?
Yeah, they stay out in the Chicos. Then when they're about big 3-year-olds, Harry'd take them to Cheyenne, put them in the wild horse race.
What kind of prep do you have to do to get a bronc? They just have to be halter broke? Is about
that's what he put them in the wild horse race at Cheyenne. That broke them. Okay. We didn't have to mess with them.
Didn't have to. I see.
But
somebody told me if a horse still had any life left to him after they crossed the finish line, Harry sorted that horse off to be a bronc. Was that any truth to that?
I don't know that. What happened is he'd take them colts or 3-year-olds and run them in the wild horse race. Then the next year, that bunch that was in the wild horse race would go into the rookie bronc ride.
Okay.
And then like Donna, his daughter, Donna Vold, she'd sit up in the stands during the rookie bronc ride, and then Harry'd be out in the arena, and he'd give her a signal, 2 stars, 1 star, and they'd rate them horses. And then they'd come back the second round, and they see, well, he got 2 stars this time. Well, he got 3 stars today. Well, then when we go to Colorado Springs, a horse like that, they'd sprinkle in there with the good horses and buck them at Colorado Springs. And then he'd start sprinkling them in, and they stuck.
What makes a good bareback horse versus a good saddle bronc?
I don't know. These bareback horses ain't got a chance anymore. They can't buck them guys off, but they buck. But
Are they smaller by rule, quicker?
no, not really.
Why can't they buck them off? The riggins are riding now, or what?
Yes. Them guys are locked in, and you can't hardly jar them loose or pry them loose.
Did they do many broncs that went both ways? Did y'all do any that were both?
Yeah, a lot of them, if they got to, if they got to shortening up, he put them in the bareback riding to get them to extend out because they ain't got nothing on their head. And then if they got to extend it out too much, he'd pull them back from the bareback and put them back in the broncs. Then kind of shorten them up a little.
That makes sense, don't it?
But a lot of them horses,
Let me
Harry,
see what this beeping is. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay.
a lot of them horses, it was bred into them.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what we did to them. It's like they say flanking makes them, breaks them. No, if they're a bucking horse, they'll buck with a string tied around their flank. I mean, they just got it in them.
Yeah. Well, they've really got that breeding program going now, don't they?
Everybody does.
That not crazy?
Calgary, Hank Franzine, everybody's got them.
It's crazy. And the bull program is just,
Same way.
they're breeding them where they're just almost unrideable. Well, Matt Austin says they need to start breeding better
the
cowboys. Yeah.
I'm with Matt.
Hey, Vannie, you were talking about those colts in the wild horse race at Cheyenne. Not everybody's been to Cheyenne. Not everyone's seen the wild horse race, and you're talking about leading them over there to where they are. Can you just explain to everybody exactly how this deal works?
Well, they already have them horses haltered, and when they run into the chute, they slap this big long lead shank on them, and they throw.
How
it
long
over.
is it?
It's about 20 feet, 15 feet.
It's pretty long.
It's long, but all the pickup men, and there were 6 of us, and a lot of times I'd look up and I'd see Ty Murray and Cody Lambert. They'd go steal one of my other pickup horses, and they'd be out there helping us. But you just take the hack rein. When you leave that chute, you just let that horse run ahead of you. You just go straight across. And then they'll tell you left or right, and you take that horse that way. Then these 3 guys come out in there, and they're holding them. So them first guys have been holding that horse as we bring the other 30 across. And then when we get them all across and they got enough, they'll say, yeah. So whatever's left in the chute, we just turn out. But it's quite the...
It's a wild event.
Yeah, and you got to make sure when you come back, you go wide and go around. You don't just come straight back to the chutes because they're coming across, all of them. You got 6, 7 guys bringing them across. But it's a lot of fun to do it.
They're bringing them over there to the racetrack, and I guess how did they decide which way they went, north or south, when you were going?
Irk, the guy in charge of the rodeo, Hersick.
Oh, Tommy.
Tommy, old man Tommy, not Tommy now, but he'd point. When he shot the gun off, he'd point.
Gotcha.
And then so them guys couldn't cheat because he'd shoot the gun off and then he'd point. And that's when they knew.
They had to go all the way around the track. First one back across the line wins. I mean, that's just pretty wild. That is a wild horse race right there.
Marvin Schulte won it 3 times at Cheyenne.
He knew the deal.
an old rodeo clown from Happy, Texas. Or
Nazareth.
Nazareth.
I know Bob Schulte, well, I guess related to him.
Brother.
Yeah, brother.
Oh, okay.
Older brother.
Well, heck, I didn't know his older brother was a rodeo clown. Shows you how much I know. Bob Romer was from around that area too, wasn't he?
Canyon. Went to school
yeah.
at Canyon.
What was it like picking up at Cheyenne? Was it harder, that big arena? Does that make it a lot harder to pick up broncs?
Not when you got 6 guys.
Okay.
And Cheyenne back then, it was a lot of fun to pick up. Now it's, since they narrowed it in, I don't know how it is, but I didn't like it that last year I was there. But the old days when it was wider, longer.
I didn't know they narrowed it in, but watching it on TV, it just looks a lot narrower than it did when I
70
was a
feet,
kid.
they moved it in from
Yeah.
the big stand they got there now.
Right.
They moved it in 70 feet.
Yeah. Well, I knew it looked more narrow than it
Yeah.
used to when I was a kid. 'Cause
We had a deal one time, and I didn't know how they were going to get through it, but the rookie bronc ride, and it's just one right after the other. So 2 of us are going, and when we picked up rookie bronc rides, we pair up in 3s, where we could keep 2 guys going and the other guy stay behind and just pushing. And because in Colts, they didn't know. We got one set of guys coming from the roping end going to the north. And we got another set of guys that just turned by the camera pit, and they're going from there to the south. And they all come together, and they went just like that, and not one of them head on. And we thought, we're fixing to see 4 or 5 horses upset. Bill Larson and Brad Churchill and, I forget who else, Kenny Carpenter. They just interlocked and went right by them. It's pretty wild.
You said you
It's a
got
lot of
hurt.
fun.
You said you got hurt up there pretty good one time, didn't you?
On the 100th, I had 2 horses roll over top of me and had a rib go through my lung, punctured it.
What caused that?
I went in to pick this horse. It wasn't one of Harry's horses, another stock contractor, but this horse kind of went around in a short circle to the right. And I went in to get him. And right when I got to him, he just stopped and went right over the top of me. And when he did, he just rolled my horse over the top of me, and then he landed on top of me. So it's right there in front of the chutes.
You thought you'd been bull riding, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought something.
Oh,
And then I got up and I thought I was all right. My horse was all right. I went to pick up another one. I went to pick up Dan Etbauer. And when Dan jumped off on me, it just pushed that rib in my lung further. And that's when I lost all my air. That was it.
Well,
What was a day of working up there at Cheyenne like? I imagine you guys had quite a bit of work to do up there working for Harry.
That is not my favorite rodeo, I can tell you. It's a good rodeo, and I like the historical part. But for us, it's 4:30 in the morning. We start feeding, get done feeding, and we had 2 different crews that sorted. We had the rough stock crew that sorted, and then Brad and Shirley and whoever had the steers would have their crew sorting.
That's who we worked with every
Brad and Shirley.
Yeah, Shirley. She was the boss. Brad was just one of us.
But they had a lot. I mean, like the timed events, you got 400 head of tripping steers, 400 dogging steers, 400 team. Well, we didn't have team roping back then, but you got 400 head of calves. So you got to go through every one of them every day and pick out the ones that are up that day and send them across. Then, like us, we'd sort all the bucking horses, get the rookie broncs ready, get the wild horses ready, and stage them. And Daryl Barron was in charge of that then, him and Mark Carter. And then we get done with the rodeo, we'd send all our pickup horses back and keep one, probably one of our younger horses, and pin everything back and start sorting for the next day.
What about parade days? Did y'all have to help saddle all them
No,
horses
we
and
did
stuff?
not have to help parade days.
Okay. For some reason, I just figured you did.
No.
Where did Harry come up with all those black stock and legged horses?
Well, he had all the yellow horses for the
Okay.
committeemen at Cheyenne.
Okay.
And he always told me he wanted them 3 martini broke. And I says, what do you mean 3 martini broke? He says, I want it. If that guy gets on, he's had 3 martinis, that horse is going to walk under him to keep him on that horse. And I says, okay. But all of them were broke that way because they were all gentle. He could put all them committee men in. They might bid in the beer stand. Down the track they go, and he didn't have to worry about them. Them yellow horses all just perfect.
How many extras would you have to bring to a rodeo like that?
Picking up?
No,
Pick
just
up horses?
extra broncs and stuff.
Oh. Well, at one time we were bringing, you had to have 50 to 60 rookie broncs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you'd have the same amount of wild horses for the wild horse race. And then you'd have your regular broncs and barebacks. And then I think we took like 9 truckloads of horses up there. And that wasn't counting the other stock contractors.
Did you ever have to drive a truck?
Every day. That was part of it.
That's part of it, huh?
I run for Harry. I started doing little stuff, and then he started having more trust in me, I guess. And I run the time division for 18 years at his rodeos, and picked up and drove truck. Scott Walton would flank, do a lot of the admin stuff, getting committees lined up and helping us out, and he drove a truck. Kenny Carpenter would pick up with me. Brad picked up with me, but anytime you picked up, you were driving the truck.
Do you remember that time Scott Walton, he wanted to have a bounty bulldog and steer, kind of like they had a bounty bull back in the day, and then every time they didn't get rode or something, they added more money onto it. I think he was wanting to put like a Mexican fighting bull or something in there.
We had a steer. His number was 10.
Okay.
And he was a big blue steer in the herd we got that year. And he thought about that. And this steer run. And then when you did get a hold of him, you couldn't get him down. And when you got up, he'd hook you. And I finally had to take him out of the draw because Roy Duval said, we don't need that steer in there no more. And I said, yes, sir, Roy. So I took him out of the draw, but he was bad.
Yeah, Scott Walton, he wanted to make that a bounty steer and, put, I don't know, some money on it. And then for all the times he didn't get a time on him, they'd add that much more money on it every time. So when a guy finally did get him and get him down, that he would
I don't know if he
cash
ever
out.
thought that, but I know Scott was always thinking of ways to make rodeo better and things better for all of us.
Well, I know he thought it because he told me about it when I was a kid. That's the only reason I remember it. Him and Scotty were the coolest 2 guys I knew, honestly. They worked for Harry Vold and chewed Canadian Copenhagen and all kind of stuff.
What was the worst mud you ever saw at Siam? I bet you saw it wet there a few times, didn't you?
Nearly every year.
Yeah.
I've seen it with just water on the arena before.
We got in trouble one year. We were one of the specialty acts. Karen had a deal. It was the Bar HV quadrille team. And you had to work for Harry, and there was 8 of us. And it was 4 guys and 4 girls, and we ran and paraded on our horses and, did all that. And Karen had all these white saddles. And we had white chaps and all these fancy deals. And we'd been over at the Double B barn and been drinking a little too much. And we decided that night when we sold out, when we went to the big stand to sell out, and I was riding kind of a colt at that time, but it was that deep in mud, and them white saddles were brown. And that horse was tired. He just wanted to stop. Mm-hmm. So I told Bill Larson and Kenny Carpenter and Brad, I says, we're going to stand up in our saddles. Oh, no. I said, yeah. We go sell out. We're going to stand up in saddles. We stood up in our saddles. It looked cooler. And Karen got mad at us. So we sell out. We go out, go to the Double B barn, unsaddle them, cleaning off the saddles. We get into the liquor again. Here comes Harry. You guys all right? Yes, sir. He Says, we won't be seeing that standing up in saddle no more. He takes a step away. He says, but it was cool that you guys did it. And he walked off.
Oh, shoot. We were up there. We had the roping steers there the year they told Harry he wasn't going to be back the next year. I saw him do that to a couple different guys. Dan Taylor, while I was up there, and then Harry. And I feel like that rodeo meant so much to those two guys. They didn't even make it to the next year's rodeo, either one of them. Well, I just felt so bad for both of them, to be honest with you. Yep. Not saying anything bad. I know everything has to change and move on. I just felt like that killed both of those guys. Personally, I mean, I just felt like it did.
Yeah, Harry, he had 7 rodeos that stuck with him through everything, and they still were with him up to them, but Cheyenne wasn't one of them. But they just wanted to change. It's like any rodeo. They just want to change. That's the reason I still like Pendleton, Prescott. They ain't changed. It's still the same old rodeo.
Yeah, they're both great rodeo. Cheyenne's still a good rodeo.
I
just different to us guys that's been there.
Yeah,
in the past.
You know, and Cheyenne, I love the history. I love being a part of it, and God, them morning slacks and untying and sorting and the wrecks we had that nobody even seen behind the chutes.
Hey, we were at Odessa one year. We had the tripping steers there, and I was helping. They used to bring the short round into this little building in Odessa. We'd rope outside in January, and then they'd take the top 18 back into this little bitty building. And I was back there helping them sort steers and stuff, and there was 2 or 3 fighting bulls back here. They couldn't get out of a pen to load into the chutes. And Harry's sitting there telling everybody sitting there, get out in there, boy, get that bull in there. I shagged. I didn't go and help that day, but I just remembered he was trying to get everybody down in there to help get those fighting bulls out of that pen so they could get them loaded.
Yeah. Yeah, or something. That
would have been a wreck that day.
Yeah.
That's where we cut Crooked Nose's horn off. It was right there in that chute at Odessa.
Really?
Yeah. Me and Brad and Scott, Big Chuck Bailey, another guy, but we had some OB wire and we went to Sonda. He broke it hitting a barrel like a week or a month before, and it was just flopping. So he decided to cut it off, and we went to cutting that thing off, and it took every one of us. We'd take with that OB wire and go so far, and then somebody else get up there and do it. It's that big around at the base.
Yeah.
I'm glad you told us Crooked Nose's history, because when y'all were hauling those bulls around, I did remember that there was a bull. I thought it was his brother, Purple People Eater. And then you mentioned that the original Purple People Eater was
45.
Crooked Nose's dad, but I think a lot of people actually get all that confused right there.
45 was the father to all of them.
Okay.
Purple People Eater. 141 was his son, who was, I called him Goat because his horns were so high. But he was a bullfighting of the year, 1 year behind Crooked Nose. Him, Crooked Nose, Black Panther, and Wrangler.
Well, I'm just glad we set that straight for everybody, because I read a lot of stuff online, and I don't think most of them got it right, you know. And
Just call Scott Walton.
I talked to Scotty here a year or two ago.
You need to get him in there.
About getting him a Jumbotron over here for an event we were going to do. Yep. Talked to him and Rick Salee.
You even took a stint working for Mac Altizer, you told me.
Yeah, I been with Harry 20 years, and I thought, I need to do something different. You know, get away from rodeo for a while. Mm-hmm. So I went home, talked to my mom, seen her and helped her a little bit, and then I got to working for this guy down at the D Ranch, Kenny's, and it's a 360 sections, 360 square miles. From Guadalupe Mountain off towards Pecos and back towards Carlsbad. It's out in the middle of nowhere. And I worked for him for a little bit, and Mac had Pecos at that time, and he talked me into going and helping him, and I went and helped him a couple of rodeos, picked up, and next thing I know, I was living in Sonora Del Rio working for Mac.
How big a difference is the Vold Rodeo Company compared to Bad Company Rodeo to be working for?
Well, Mac was very unique, and that guy did more for rodeo than anybody I'll ever know, and how he did it. Harry's kind of the old school, proper, correct, and very historical. Mac, he's always the new rock and roll. That's what I like about picking up at Mac's. The song would come on, you knew what horse was coming out.
He played great music, and he named a lot of his
All the
stuff
horses.
after a classic rock song. it seemed
Yeah,
like.
every one of them. But I know we used to spin. He'd get them steers across to Del Rio, and we'd go to there at Del Rio at his mom's place. And they had a big arena, and we'd wrap. We had that fiberglass stuff thin, rebar and fiberglass, all them horns, because we were having tripping. Every rodeo Mac had, he had tripping.
He took it all the way to Florida and Georgia. Steer open event. Did you go to those ones with him to
No.
Bonifay and
No,
Adel?
I stayed mostly right there in Texas, New Mexico, Kansas. You know, I go to Garden City, go to Silver City, yeah. And then I was with him about 2 years, and then I went to work for Terry Walls.
What about that big bull riding they put on down there? George
Del Rio.
Paul.
George
Yeah.
Paul, that is a...
Jimbo, I saw a picture one time. David Jennings was showing it to everybody at Pecos. Tuff Hedeman was down there and won the bull riding, and he's got his arm around a topless woman here and his other arm around a topless woman right there.
They must have went to
Right
Cunha.
in the arena. It was in the arena at the bull riding.
I thought they went to Cunha or something.
Well, I imagine they did go to Acuna right afterwards, but this was him accepting his championship buckle right in the middle of the arena, right between. Sorry about this. I'm sure you've seen some wild stuff too.
She grew up around them, so she knows.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just never forget that.
No.
But
That picture is out there somewhere too. So
yeah, they say that Marvin Paul or
George
Paul, if he wouldn't got killed, he was unbelievable. He was the stickiest guy they ever seen. He had like 60 or 70 bulls in a road he rode that year. They couldn't buck him all.
the best riding percentage, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Is that the one you said the singer wears his buckle around?
Yeah, he gave his
Tom
world championship
Jones.
buckle to Tom Jones. And Tom Jones in concert, I don't know if he does any concerts anymore, but back then when he was doing a concert, he wore George Paul's belt buckle.
And that was, back then, that was one of the biggest deals for bull riders to go to. They didn't have all this PBR and stuff that you got now. If you went to George Paul and got invited and you went and you won that thing, that was big. That was
Yeah,
really
they didn't
big.
have all the bull riding associations like they have now. PBR or none of them
Right.
was around when that thing first started.
And I think one of my, I think it's 22 bulls in a row at the NFR he's rode. I may be wrong, but you know, he rode so many the first year. He rode all 10 that one year, and then he rode some more, but I think it's 22 head he rode in a row at the NFR. And that's Jim Sharp.
Yeah.
That guy was good.
We're sitting in the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum. Did you ever know Ben Johnson?
Yeah, I got to spend some time with Ben. My dad called me. He was doing a movie in New Mexico, and he called me. He says, "You get down here, you can help out and do some stuff." So I met my dad. I went and did Silverado, and I thought, I like this. I got $8,000 for 1 week. I went, and all I did was sit on my butt and play cards all day.
Right.
That's all I did until they called me, and I would take me 5 minutes to do what I was doing and then come back. And I thought, I like this. So when I went out to California, Buster, who grew up with her mom, worked for Ben.
Buster Brown?
What was Buster's last name?
I think it's Brown.
Brown, I
I
think
talked
you're
to him
right.
yesterday on the
Yeah.
phone, to be honest with you.
But he grew up around Elida, and I went out there and got with Ben. I says, "What do I need to do, Ben?" And he told me and gave me some deals. And then I didn't have nowhere to stay. He says, just go to Randall Ranch and tell Glenn Randall I sent you. So I went to Randall Ranch, and I got to spend time with Glenn Randall, and that guy was so amazing. He had a book. We called it his Bible. It was about that big and thick, and he trained all the Hollywood horses, like the Ben-Hur movie. When they needed a horse to do a trick, they sent it to Glenn. And I learned a lot from that man. And I was with him about 3 months. But it was unique being around him. I never seen a guy who could look at a horse and know what he had to do with it. But I spent some time out there, and I went, no, I'm going back to Harry's. And 4 months away from Harry, which we didn't have no rodeos going on at that time. So I just come back and went to picking up again.
That was a good Western. Silverado was a good Western.
Didn't we talk to somebody else that was in Silverado?
Kenny Call.
Kenny Call.
Kenny Call.
Was that it?
Yeah, Kenny Call.
Yep.
Did you get to meet Kevin Costner?
No, we didn't get to hardly meet any. Danny Glover, I did. I really like Danny.
Yeah.
I keep in touch with him. I seen him at Napa last year and got to talk to him again. Really nice guy. Most all them other guys, they, when we did Silverado, Kevin, Claude, the main actors that were known at that time was Brian Dennehy, Scott Glenn, Kevin Kline, and the little lady that she won an Academy Award the year before for playing a guy, the little short lady, Hunt.
Oh, yeah.
Linda Hunt.
Yeah.
And she was a really nice lady. And then the rest of them, all the, Kevin Costner and all the rest of them were all young, up-and-coming actors. And it was a lot of fun. I just wish I could have got in a little more.
Good work if you can get it.
Yeah.
$8,000 a week.
Yeah.
I'll take that right now.
That's
Jimbo.
why Ben's staying in
Quit my job.
California.
Well, that's like one of my best friends is Bobby Mack.
Yeah.
Bobby McLaughlin.
Yeah, we know him very
You
well.
guys had a
Yeah.
podcast with him, but he left here when he was 19, went out there with little money, got out with his other brother, and he stayed there and did stunts for 20 years, 30 years.
Bobby McLaughlin.
Yeah.
He called me yesterday.
Bobby Mack.
I meant to call him back, and I never did.
He won't call you back.
I said I meant to call him back. He calls me about 3 times a week right now.
Bobby Mack.
Yeah.
We got a deal going into Don back there in the back, because they actually held the National Final Steer Open 4 times in Pawhuska, right here. And Don won one of his world championships here in Pawhuska. And Bobby Mack brought us a saddle and his world champion buckle and a rope can that he won here. So we got that going together back
Yeah.
there.
Gonna be good.
You can see it. You can see it right now.
Right, I know.
Get over here to the museum.
You said you got to know Slim Pickens a little bit too.
Yeah. Got to know him a little bit.
We've talked to a lot of guys that are in the movie business. None of them's known Slim Pickens yet.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear this.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Vannie.
He was an old clown.
Yeah. But he's an old rodeo guy, bronc rider
Yeah.
and stuff, bareback
And,
riding and things.
When I was a kid, I remember Dad and me went down to Carlsbad when they were shooting that movie about rodeo, Honkers, I think it was. Anyway, Slim was
The
in
Honkers,
it.
yeah. I'm still trying to find that movie. It's hard to find out there
And
right now.
anyway, he was really nice. I was just a kid. And then when I did Silverado, the lady that was the costume designer for that movie was the costume designer for this movie at Silverado. And she's bigger and famous more than now. She's done so many movies, but me and her getting talking, and she was giving me my wardrobe for that shot that day. And me and her got talking. She says, wait a minute, I got something for you to wear today. She went back and got this big black bear coat, brought it over to me. She says, this is yours. Don't bring it back. I said, what? She says, no, I've been wanting to give this to somebody, and this was Slim, so I'm giving it to you. I didn't know if it's Slim's or not, but she said it was, and I took it, and I wore that coat, and even Cody remembers me wearing that black bear coat.
That's when I decided that was the coolest guy I ever met right there.
Right, right.
He had a big fur coat, a black coat. Boy, it was cool, Jimbo.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, Slim, he was an old rodeo guy and then got to clowning, you know, and got famous and then got into the movies. And as they say, the rest is history. But
Yeah, we have one of his old lever action shotguns back there, Jimbo.
oh, really?
Came
Yeah.
from, I guess Ben Johnson had got it from him. And we
My
got it
dad
from
was a
Ben
little
Johnson's
kid
estate.
when Slim was clown. He said he had a little, I can't remember if it was a mule or an Appalachian mare or something, but part of his act, he'd run out there, elope out there in the arena, and that horse or whatever, mule, I can't remember what it was, but it would buck him off on cue and buck him off. And then somebody ended up with it. I read the story. Of course, a lot of stories out there, but whoever ended up with that horse never did know what caused it to buck. Never could figure out what the cue was until they got about 8 miles from the house and they found out.
Didn't he ride him in some movies and
they
stuff too? Didn't
had
he?
to walk back.
That was a famous little Appaloosa horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of famous pictures of that horse out there.
But he had a cue that would make him buck, and that guy found out when he was a long way from the house.
Yeah.
Oh boy!
Another rodeo clown that we mutually know is old Buddy Heaton.
Oh yes.
You knew him back in his prime of his life.
Well, not quite at the prime of his life, but he was still in a lot of trouble. That guy.
He was hanging out in that area out there, wasn't he?
Yes.
New Mexico and Clovis area, there for a little while.
He never knew when he was going to turn up. If he turned up, he's either trying to sell you something that he really didn't own, or he's trying to borrow money from you to get down the road to the next one. But what a character. You know as well as I the things he could do.
Yeah. He told me he flew an airplane through the Gateway Arch one time.
There wasn't nothing he wouldn't do or try. And if he told him he couldn't do it, it's just like when he rode at the inauguration.
Yeah.
He wasn't even supposed to be there.
No,
Surprised they didn't shoot him.
he didn't have clearance. You know,
Yeah.
all those other people had clearance, and he just kind of horned his way into the parade, and then just rode right up, just forced himself right up there on Kennedy. You know, and it really startled those Secret Service guys.
Yeah, he told me out of his own mouth that he liked to got shot over that deal. He said the Secret Service was fixing to shoot him, and Kennedy waved him off.
Yep.
Yeah.
He took his buffalo right in front of him and had him kneel, and he took his hat off right there. And
Oh, there's a lot more stories. But this is a family program. We can't talk about Buddy.
yeah, I told him that everyone knows he jumped that buffalo in that race and won it up there in Calgary that time, but not everybody knows that the Canadian Mountie shot his buffalo directly after that, and Buddy was not allowed back in Canada ever again for the rest of his life right after that, because the Queen of England was sitting there watching that race, and they said it was on par with the Kentucky Derby here in America. So they were not happy with Buddy for winning that race on his buffalo. Did you ever hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a wonder he wasn't barred from the United States too.
Luckily, they let him live anywhere.
I know.
Surprised he wasn't living on a sandbar in the middle of the Red River.
Right. Man, we've told more Buddy Heaton stories on this podcast. I mean, you know, all our podcasts than any one person.
I know my mom gets mad every time she hears us talking about him, because she still hadn't forgiven him for stealing my bicycle when I was a kid and selling it at the horse sale there in town. She holds a grudge like that for a while.
Annie, you've been to a lot of rodeos and stuff. If you were making a Mount Rushmore rodeos, what 4 rodeos you think belong on it?
Prescott, Arizona, Pendleton, Salinas. And probably, I'd give it to Fort Worth.
I thought he might say Madison Square Garden.
No, I never been there.
Oh, you never went?
Never went, never been there.
I knew they brought it back in the 80s at some time, or maybe early 90s, just for not very long. I thought you may have went out to that one.
No, Jerome
Robinson.
Yeah, he took the stuff that one year they had the bull riding or whatever at the Madison Square Garden.
Boy, that guy could produce a rodeo or a bull riding. I worked for him setting up an arenas over in the Kansas Coliseum growing up. Every year he had a rodeo in Wichita, and he'd call me up, and I'd go work, help him set up the arena and load calves and
There's
strip
another,
broncs, whatever I needed to do.
there's another guy that did more for rodeo than anybody. Was Jerome, because he was such a production put on, you know. He knew how to do it, and he was always looking ahead to make it better. That guy was amazing. If you didn't know him or been around him, you wouldn't have seen it. But a lot of people that know him know
Yeah. Cody's told me about him.
he was amazing.
It was. We'd roll in there, start setting up that arena. At the same time, they were breaking the ice on the ground from the hockey game the night before. We were getting the arena set up for that next weekend at the rodeo.
And sometimes they'd keep the high ice. A lot of them coliseums up at North End, they keep the ice cold. They just put plyboard down, put the dirt on top about a foot deep, and we'd have a rodeo. Then they just clear it off to the plyboard and then pull the plyboards off and have that Zamboni thing go across it and clean it up, and off they be skating again.
Dang.
You know, I met him down there at the Hall of Fame that year. You know, my grandfather went in. He died just not long after that.
Yep, I know.
Kind of a shock.
He was a good guy.
Yeah.
He was a good cowboy, too, in his early
He
days.
could ride bulls.
No doubt about it. He could produce a rodeo, too. What if you were building a Mount Rushmore pickup men? Who would you put on there?
Bill Larson, Brad Churchill. One you guys would know, Lefty Wilkins. They lived down the road from me. Kenny Carpenter.
A lot of people probably put you on there, Vannie.
Yeah. I was blessed. I had some really good partners. And that's the main thing about picking up is that other guy and the horse under you.
I know Brad. He's a good cowboy.
Yeah, Brad picked up the finals twice. One of the most amazing cowboys is Bill Larson. He picked up the finals once. That's Harry's son-in-law. But he's all cowboy.
Is that Tammy's dad?
Yep,
Okay.
Tammy Larson's dad.
She's a pretty good cowboy herself.
Oh, yes, she is. Yeah. And I picked up, there's one more I could put in there, and I didn't put him in. That's Chuck Holloway. You know, me and him picked up. He picked up the finals. Another one beat Joe Dornkamp.
I saw Chuck one time at Guyman. It seemed like this was after his brother died. And he was riding a horse where he only had, I think it was an Indian bridle on it. Only on the bottom.
War
Yeah, it was
bridle.
only on the bottom part of that horse's mouth. He was picking up.
Yep,
Well, I sure thought Chuck was a good guy.
he was. Could have stayed out of the alcohol.
Well, it seemed like when his brother died, his life kind of went in the wrong direction there.
Yep.
I don't know that for a fact. It just from
It
the
did.
outside looking in.
But it hurt him. You know, TC was amazing. TC would have lived there, you know, tell how many championships that guy would have rode. He rode just like Casey Tibbs, who was kin to him. He rode just like him.
They say he was a good guy too.
Oh, yeah, he was. That whole family's good. Johnny's the dad, and Sharon's the mom, and all the girls. There's 3 girls. One of them's married to one of the Garrett boys. But they're all really good people. Cowboys. True cowboys there.
Shoot, I got to ask him another Mount Rushmore. What about stock contractors, Vannie? Because he's done it all, Jimbo. Very few people have seen every aspect of rodeo like Vannie has.
Right.
Yeah. That one's pretty easy. Harry Vold, Cotton Rosser, Mac Altizer. The things Mac did was just so amazing. And the last one I'd have to say, and you guys will, is a guy up in Canada that I thought was one of the greatest. That was Vern Franklin. Old Vern, he had some bucking horses.
Did he?
Kingsway Skull. horse got a coin in Canada made after him because he was so good. He was a bareback horse 1 year, and then he won the bronc twice.
No kidding.
Yeah, he was his back pasture was the North Pole, so they didn't know where their horses were. They take dozers and clear out trees to find them. They'd just be in, and when they did, them horses just run right over them, come out of them trees, and they'd have a pin set up at the end and catch them.
Well, I bet there were some big wild dudes.
Airwolf.
Oh yeah, Airwolf came from him.
Yep.
Wow, yeah, I remember famous picture. I think Glenn O'Neill riding that booger at the national finals. I think Ty Murray may have rode him at the national finals one time. That horse, he had the highest jump out of the chute. The mini horse I ever saw that didn't throw himself down about every time.
He catapulted himself. He'd shoot himself up like that. But then when he come down, oh man, that sucker bucked.
What do you think about that Killer Bees they just had out here a while back?
Just kidding.
Boy, that looked like a rank horse.
Yes. You know, and nowadays there's so many. Like when I was riding and when I was working for Harry, you know, every stock contractor had 4 or 5 really good horses. Some guys had more. But over these last few years, every stock contractor's got 20, 25 horses, good ones. You know, that's how the breeding program's made it better. You know, Hank Francine, I should have put him in there as a stock contractor because Hank and Lori started with nothing and all the horses they got now, and she has kept a record on every one of them horses from when they started till the day, and they got some bucking horses.
That's a good rodeo family too. Heck, their daughter was the sound person of the year a couple years ago for the PRCA.
And John's kind of took over, and Lori and Hank backed off a little because they're getting older and letting John take over, and he's doing a good job. They got good rodeos, and they worked really hard, and they got where they're at now.
Volds, they still have Prescott, don't they?
Yeah, Kirsten.
Yeah.
Kirsten does a good job.
She does, doesn't she?
Yeah. I started working for Harry when she was 6 years old, and I ain't gonna tell you how old she is now. She'll shoot me. It's been around for quite a while.
What happened to that horse, Bobby Joe Skull? I don't ever remember what ended up happening. Did they just retire him, or did
They
something
retired
happen?
him, and then I think something happened to him. I don't know. I was gone by then.
Okay.
I mean, I know they had him and Joe Finn, and both of them were really, really old, and they had them in a special pen, taking care of them and feeding them special stuff, because both of them were really good horses, very good horses. Joe Finn was just as good as Bobby Joe, I thought.
Boy, Harry loved old Bobby Joe, though, didn't he?
Yeah. So did Scott Walton.
Did he?
That's Scott Walton's nickname.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, heck.
Everybody that, you know, because he flanked him most all the time, and so we just nicknamed him Bobby Joe. So we call Scott Bobby Joe.
One of the only saddle bronc rides I even remember seeing in person that I just remember every time I think about a saddle bronc ride. I saw Billy Etbauer win Cheyenne on Bobby Joe's skull. I just thought that it just stuck in my mind that this was true rodeo history happening right here.
In that one year, Ty, I think he had him at Prescott, Cheyenne, Colorado Springs, and Dodge City. I think he had Bobby Joe at all the big rodeos we had that summer. And he'd win every one of them, you know. That's the reason they got that one picture at the ranch of Bobby Joe and Ty. It's a picture of Ty and Bobby Joe.
I remember it's not like it is now. You used to have to go to the office and get your check when the rodeo was done there at Cheyenne. And my dad had placed, and I saw Oakberry standing there. I'm like, oh, my Lord, there's Oakberry, one of my heroes. So I went to go get his autograph on this. They sold T-shirts of Oakberry there. And he said, you want my buddy's autograph too, old Puddin' here? I'm like, no, not really. And that was Ty Murray.
Yeah, Puddin'.
Yeah. I still remember what Oakberry called him that day.
Oat still calls
I'm like,
me.
oh, that's Ty Murray. That's Ty Murray right there.
There's only 2 people that still call me by my nickname that Harry gave me, and it's Oat and Brad Churchill.
What is it? We'll get it going again, Vannie. All these thousands of people listening.
It's
to
called Pup.
I was to say pup.
P-U-P. And Harry named me. He says, "You're just like a damn pup. You're into everything and tearing up shit." That's what Harry told me like the first year I worked for him. So it stuck.
Vannie was right about Mac Altizer on that deal. As soon as he started doing his thing, nobody had ever even seen or heard anything like this done in the world of rodeo. In fact, Floyd Rumford, they were still hauling around an old organ player, to their rodeos. And all of a sudden, Mac, they start putting the classic rock music with it. And the guys he had around, were pretty wild guys. The clown, I mean, everybody.
Really?
I mean, it was really.
Really? They were wild?
It seemed like when I was a kid. The only one that didn't seem that wild was Quell Dobbs there at Pecos. When you'd have Quell there, he was another one of my heroes growing up. But yeah, it was just a whole wild scene. It was there's moment in time. I feel like
there was a difference in John Shadler. He had a big old cigar, and he'd play that horn, and he'd have a horn band, and that's what Harry used at all his rodeos, was that horn band.
Yeah.
For years. And John Shidler would go every rodeo. And then Mac come out with that rock and roll music, and it started packing the stands more.
Changed the game, didn't it?
It changed the game. And now, I work for a guy now, Benji Bindley, and he's been in charge of the national finals for like 22 years. He gave it up, and somebody else is doing it now, but I help him out. But
he's the one that started with that.
Yeah, him and his brother, John, started that music they started doing sound and stuff, but they started that with Mac. They both worked for Mac.
It totally revolutionized rodeo. And I'll tell you something else Mac did that you never saw at a rodeo before, and you see it at every single rodeo now. It's called a contestants hospitality area, where they'd give us free food, more importantly, free beer.
Mm-hmm. You were right in there, Cody, weren't you?
I was, yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. But anyway, you never seen or even heard of anything like that until Mac started doing it, and he pledged to do it at every one of his rodeos, and he did.
Yeah, and the other thing Mac did that was all the bag company logos. He had a trailer with T-shirts, caps, and it went to every rodeo.
Merch.
Yeah.
He had merchandise, and it's coming back.
Well, yeah, I actually called Mac about, Doug Dugan, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I called Mac, and Doug called him for me, and I said, I want to invest in
I built a
buying
McDonald's.
Yeah, you did? You did? I did too. Playgrounds. All this guy hired, I'm going to go off the subject a little bit, go back to Doug and building playgrounds. There was this guy who was a saddle bronc rider, good fella, and he's still alive. He got into building these McDonald's playgrounds. Every McDonald's in the whole U.S. had a playground. And then eventually we did Chuck E. Cheese and Burger Kings, Peter Piper pizzas, all kind of stuff. And all he hired was out-of-work cowboys. And it was me, and he had an office downtown above the bar of the Cadillac that had a 24-hour poker game going in his office.
Dice game.
And that's where I slept. Well, they played poker there, too.
Yeah, we played a lot of dice.
Gary Galt.
Yep.
Did you know Gary Galt down there? Mm-hmm. He had a whole casino above one of those bars. Dice, roulette, everything.
T.J. Walter's old bar, USA, Cowboy USA or whatever, it was right next to the Cadillac. It's something else now.
Yeah, it was just a little old wooden deal with some stairs on the side of it, and you'd walk up there.
It's all up there, that second floor.
Yep. It was a whole casino Gary Galt was running up there. And I'm not telling him because he's dead now. So.
Yeah. Had that up there, and we had the beds in the corner above the Cadillac. We'd go up and go sleep.
Well, that's where I lived there for about the first 4 months I worked for Doug. Yeah. He said, everybody above the Cadillac here. And I couldn't walk through the front door because I was only 18 or 19 years old. But every now and then, I could walk in the back, down the stairs, right into the bar. And that Marcy lady, she wouldn't kick me out.
Yeah, Marcy.
Sometimes she wouldn't.
Me and Brian McNair used to run the bar on the back side of the Cadillac, the bar at the back door. Me and him would run that bar.
Oh, okay.
when we needed a job. Then we were off rodeoing again.
And then eventually he bought this place over in Springtown, Texas, on off of 99, the Jacksboro Highway there, and he had a whole army barracks set up, Jimbo, and had all these cowboys. Larry Sandvik was working for him, and Denny McClanahan was working for him. All these great rough stock riders, and as soon as it started getting a little bit hot there in Texas, you wouldn't see any of those guys from up north until the next fall when they needed to make a little money. So,
Yep.
I read somewhere that they were tearing out all those playgrounds now.
yeah, they're going away now, but back in the day, every single McDonald's had
I
one.
know.
They said it would raise their bottom line up quite a bit just for people to bring their kids.
You could be broke and say you were in Washington State. Call Doug. Says, "Hey, Doug, I'm broke. Oh, just go down there to Spokane. They were building one down there at so and so, and you can get a job there." And he wherever any of the guys, you might see Larry calling from North Carolina and broke down. You got a job over here? Yeah, he'd go over and get a job there. I mean, he helped a lot of them.
He was the Benny Binion of the McDonald's.
Yeah, Larry, he's talking about at that Cadillac bar. One time he started a fight with the entire bar there at the Cadillac bar. It was the wildest thing I've ever seen, and he didn't back down from them either. It was Larry against about 25 guys.
Sandvik was something else.
Somebody said he's the. We were talking to Ace Berry the other day on one of these, and he said that Larry is the reason that the new bareback rigs exist now the way they are. Mm-hmm. Well, shoot. You got anything else for him, Jimbo?
Oh, Cody, this has been one of my favorite ones. I really mean that. You know.
I know. I feel like we could go on another couple of hours, to be honest with you.
Just thank them for making the drive up here, and thank you, Kay, for keeping us straight.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
We got the first woman pickup man here.
Yeah, right.
Pickup woman.
Well, I don't know what you call it, but it's.
No, she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Dad told her to get a horseback.
Yeah.
Well, when you're doing a deal like that, it's definitely a family business. You know,
Oh, yes.
everybody is
Do what you got to
involved.
do, don't you?
Yeah, everybody's involved, you know, and honestly, some of my best memories as a person is doing stuff like that with my family, putting on rope-ins and things like that.
And Mom and Dad raised like 20 other kids besides me and Kay.
Yeah,
And
everybody hanging out,
well,
helping.
they lived right there at the house when we lived at Tier C. They lived at the house when we lived in Elida. But Dad had 3 rules, you know, keep your nose clean, keep your grades up, and do the work I ask you to do. And pretty much all of them. The only one he had trouble with was Pecos.
Shannon?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's literally,
We both know him.
literally by law, he's our half brother.
Pecos Shannon is?
Yeah.
Small world out there.
Because Pecos got in trouble with his dad and stuff, so Dad took him over, and I got that paper, Dad's contract with him, with Pecos. And, but Pecos was raised, he finished school. When he finished school, he went out on his own, but
He hung out with my grandpa quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Roping steers.
Well, Pecos come back over there to Clovis, and he started doctoring cattle at all them feed yards. And he'd call me, and I'd go help him. It was like 4 cents a head we got paid. You don't think that's much, but
Never
at the
reported.
end of the day, when you're going to Bovina feed yard, Friona feed yard, Muleshoe feed yard, you just made a lot of bucks. You
I've
made
done
about
that
8,
same
9
thing at 4 cents a alfalfa bell that's came from out in their country too. So it does add up.
He might have won Ben Johnson, didn't he? Didn't
He did.
Shannon
Pecos
win?
Shannon won the
I
Ben
think he
Johnson
did.
one year.
Yep.
He sure built a nice place out there in Lordsburg last time I was through there.
He's running 3 ranches down there.
Is he? He was quite the roper. You know, he cracked back out when he was over 50 years old and was roping pretty darn good a few years ago. Wow. He just been around every part of rodeo there is. Both of these people have. I was looking on the internet the other day, and John Wayne's old horse Dollar I guess they used to take around a bunch of old rodeos out there in New Mexico. Did he belong to y'all?
No.
You don't know who he belonged to? I just saw a picture of Bobby Brown holding him at some rodeo in New Mexico and had a big blanket on him that said
Dollar.
John Wayne's horse Dollar.
No.
And he looked real old at that time, that horse.
Some of them guys, there's a lot of cowboys from New Mexico that went to Hollywood and did stunt work or did horse stunts and stuff. But there's a lot of them guys that they kind of got a New Mexico deal now, and it's kind of the right to work state. So if we got a guy in New Mexico can do a stunt with a horse, or he can do it, and they can't bring nobody else in. But there's a lot of them guys. Might be one of them guys that owns that horse or had that horse.
I talked to old Boots Sutherland the other day.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Boots, he is something else.
Yeah, he's a real character. He was a real character.
You've had some characters on this show already.
Yeah.
You ought to get Boots on here.
Oh, I ought to. I've been thinking about it.
All the
he had that
Hollywood-
stroke, and he's finally getting where he can talk a little bit now.
Yeah. Boots.
For everybody who don't know, he was on the second or third season of Yellowstone, the guy they cut the brand off of.
Yeah.
It was an enemy with John Dutton. So
Yeah.
that was Boots, our buddy Boots.
Cody, before we get off here, you need to tell everybody why you got that sling.
Oh. Well, I made my wife mad, Jimbo, and she pushed me down a mountain.
Told you to shut up. You thought she said stand up.
Yeah. I thought I was, I don't know. I thought I'd take the family snow skiing. And I went up the mountain once, and by the time I got down, I thought, well, I'm just real good at this.
Right.
And the second time I went up the mountain, I broke my shoulder in several places right there, Jimbo. And but I did end up skiing back down the mountain.
Even with the broke shoulder?
Even with the broke shoulder, they didn't come get me.
Cowboyed up.
Yeah, I had to toughen up.
Yeah.
I had to toughen up. So, yeah, I broke my shoulder.
Yeah.
Angel Fire, New Mexico, the other day. I'm
That's the way it goes.
Lauren's doing all the heavy lifting around the house right now.
Were you in your buffalo coat when you did it?
Yeah, I was in the buffalo coat. Luckily, I was in it, buffalo coat.
Yeah, it'd been worse if you hadn't been in it.
I was just like an old buffalo rolling around in the
Right.
snow out there. Well, shoot. Don't forget, we've changed it to the first and third Thursday every month. That's when new episodes come out. And this has been one of my favorite ones too, Jimbo. No doubt about it.
It really has.
Thank you for coming, Vannie.
Oh, I appreciate it, because what you guys are doing, you're just intertwined in all our history where everybody else can hear it. And it's so good to hear it from some of them older guys.
And I know you're going to be calling me here at some point. Gosh dang, I forgot to say this or that. No.
Well, if we didn't get it said
Every
today, it wouldn't
single
be
person
said.
that does one, I just feel like there's so much more we
yeah.
could talk to Vannie
Yeah.
about, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because, just the inner workings of all these big rodeos that he went to, nobody knows really how they're done. Vannie does, I can guarantee
Yeah, it
you
was
that.
interesting to me because a lot of that I didn't understand or didn't know before.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Cheyenne. It's such a workhouse for all the help there.
I bet.
Because you're at 4:30 in the morning and you don't get done till 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I've been on the work crew there too, Jimbo.
Yeah.
I showed up to work right about 4:30, and I was just getting in about 4:30.
Not to put a damper on. Were you there when Lane got killed?
I was a horseback in the arena picking up, and I was probably 100 feet from.
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to end this on a sour note, but I just thought of that.
Yeah.
No, it's not a. It's a bad deal. It happened that day, and he really didn't get hooked. The bull just pushed his head.
That was a bad company rodeo bull, wasn't it?
Yeah, and just pushed him down, and the rib went through his heart. But he got up and was waving.
He knew it, didn't he?
Yeah,
knew was hurt
he
bad.
was waving for help from Tough or Jim or Ty, anybody that could help, Cody, any of them that were over there. And then everybody, Romer, I think Bobby Romer got to him first, and then they hauled him out.
There wasn't any internet or anything when that happened. And we were there that day, didn't know that he had died that day, and had left, when my dad got done roping that day. And we went to a team roping in Hutchinson, Kansas the next night, and every single person there knew about it.
I read it in the Tulsa World the next morning. That's where I heard about it.
Yeah. We had to go to Dodge City the next day.
Didn't Michael Gaffney ride Mr. T that day or somebody?
No.
It was that same. It was
Marty
right around that-
Standard.
Marty Standard. Yeah.
Marty Standard.
Same
did.
day though, didn't he?
Same day. Right. He just rode him right before Lane went. And
That's what I remember about that day.
first time T been rode with Al Burns, and Marty stuck it on him, and then not 4 or 5 bulls later.
And Lane got a qualified ride on
Yeah,
taking care of business, didn't
yeah.
he? Yeah.
Well, there's many a cowboy that, if they're going to go, that's the way they want to go in the short round of Cheyenne right there.
Probably.
I've heard Chris Ledoux say it a few times on some songs.
Yeah.
Do you know Chris Ledoux?
Yes, I knew Chris very well. He lived up there at KC, and he's good friends with Don and Bill Larson, and I got to meet him back then, and then he started singing more and more with Garth, and he got a little more famous. But my favorite all-time song of his is Photo Finish.
That's
in
mine
the
too.
Cheyenne.
That's mine too.
Because if you ain't been there and been with the cops
Yeah.
and fighting them
And
every
the
day.
nitwit with the weekend badge.
Yeah.
Holy moly! I'm like, this is my life, Chris. You're talking about. I
Yeah.
think we made this trip one time
I think
from
every-
Cheyenne to another place.
I think every cowboy that went to Cheyenne's made that same trip
Yeah.
in a hurry, and they ended up with a gate man with a fat lip looking at you when your horse is turned out going across the arena.
Cheyenne it's a great rodeo, and there's a lot of great people that help put it on, but they are known for those people with the weekend badges. I'm not going to say Chris Ledoux called them nitwit with a weekend badge, but I was calling them volunteer with a weekend badge because they couldn't do it without them. But
Oh, they couldn't do that rodeo without the volunteers. That's something these corporate people don't understand. That all these old rodeos, it's them 1,500 volunteers that make that rodeo work. At Pendleton, at Prescott, at Cheyenne, any of them big rodeos, it's them volunteers that make this rodeo work.
Sure.
Because if they didn't have them, they couldn't afford to pay people to do
Right,
what
sure.
they do. So.
at Prescott, it's like going back to the Old West to go to that rodeo, and then you go downtown to the Whiskey Row, and they have all those old bars, like they're still like Old West bars, every one of them. I walked in one, and there was this lady swinging on a swing from the ceiling in one of them, just like on a movie I saw one time.
Probably Bell Stars. The bar called Bell Stars.
I think it was Matt's Saloon.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have the bird cage there. They have all the old.
I can't wait till you guys do a monument pick 4 of the best bars in rodeo history.
What's your best 4 bars in the
I don't know, but that's what you started.
I went to the
Well, Pendleton have to be one.
the Letterbuck Room. There's one.
And
Boy,
then,
howdy, that's a rough place to go. Honestly, I never really enjoyed the Letterbuck Room.
yeah, the Cattleman's of Calgary.
Didn't know nothing about it, but I bet it's a good one.
Yeah. The Mint Bar in Sheridan, Wyoming.
I love the Mint Bar. If you ever get a chance to go in the Mint Bar, go. It is like taking a total step back in time.
Crystals in Bozeman.
Okay.
Well, we've got
I
like
thought you might have
4.
said the hitching post out in Cheyenne.
No, I don't want to have nothing to do with the hitching post in Cheyenne. In fact, my wife and me got married at Cheyenne, and everybody wanted us to get married in the arena. I said, I spent enough time in this arena. And we got married at Little America. And we went to Ricky and the Red Streaks. She still had her wedding dress on. I still had my tux on. And I got up on stage with Ricky or Johnny Jackman like I always do and sang Magic Carpet Ride and did the splits like I always did back then. And
You still do that.
Oh, no, I can't do that no more.
Come on, I'm gonna move. Show us all back here behind me, Van.
And this lady walked up to my wife and she says, you should be wearing your dress at this place. I paid this much money. I'm going to wear this dress anywhere I want to, she told her. We were with Ricky and Red Streaks, and Johnny Jackman's been one of my best friends for 35 years.
There was this old hotel and a bar called the Hitching Post there in Cheyenne. I don't even think it's there anymore, but
No, they knocked
that
it
was one of the Cowboys traditions. All the Cowboys went to. There was a band that played Ricky and the Red Streaks. I only saw them one time because they were going out about the time I was getting old enough to start doing that. What made Ricky and the Red Streaks so popular? Didn't they sing some some nasty songs and stuff like
They
that.
had some raunchy songs, and they did some skits and stuff that a lot of people would be embarrassed to see them, but they fit right in with the Cowboys. And Johnny Jackman, who's Ricky, he had a heck of a band. These guys could play anything at any time.
The Cowboys loved them, Jimbo.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
And the first year they went to Vegas, I remember being at the Stardust, and they had them in a little piano room. And we had it so packed in, they had to move us because we were blocking all the casino where they couldn't gamble. So they moved them to this other room. It wasn't big enough. So the next night they moved them to the big ballroom, and they could just keep opening up the doors. When they got done opening the doors, they had 15,000 people in that hotel watching Ricky and the Red Streaks. It was wild. Huh?
Yeah, Ricky and the Red Streaks. That's
Yeah,
one.
I've heard of them.
That's one for the ages right there.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything even similar to that going
Well,
on anywhere now.
Johnny come down and did in Fort Worth. He did one last year. He come down, and it. I'm trying to think of his name. The guy that plays the guitar so well, and he's got a band in Pennsylvania, and he brings his band, and then John shows up. They do the same skits, but not. It's only the guitarist and John are the only originals left. Daddy O doesn't come around no more. The drummer got killed, I guess, but it's all new guys. But they got a new guy that kind of took Daddy O's spot that plays the bass, and you can give him any kind of guitar or even the drum set, and this guy can play. And he's like 23 years old, and this guy can jam. It's pretty unique.
That's cool. That's cool. I've been to all those bars, but I don't hardly remember any of them,
No,
Jimbo.
sure you don't.
In fact, Vannie, he's a dancing machine. I think people used to dance for fun or something, but as many bars as I've been through in life, I can't play pool worth a damn or dance worth a damn, Vannie.
How'd you ever pick up a wife?
It wasn't from dancing or playing pool with her, I can tell you that.
That's how you picked up the girls. The dance floors. All I got told.
Yeah.
Well, I found a girl that was really into steer ropers, and I got lucky. Got lucky.
Yeah, you married way over your head, good buddy.
You know that. You know that. Well, shoot. You got anything else now, Jimbo?
No, I don't guess. We've got covered. We got 4 Mount Rushmores out of him, and most people we can't even get one.
They can't
You know,
even.
and he didn't
finish.
even stutter. He just spit them out.
He
I
knows.
like that.
Well, he knows. He knows his stuff.
I know.
And everyone, don't forget Kay, first woman pickup man,
Yeah.
and then one of the best pickup men to ever come down the pike, ever. Period. One of my heroes when I was a kid,
Right,
Vannie.
right.
Gosh dang it.
And he's typical cowboy. When you ask him if he belonged on the Mount Rushmore, he gave credit to the good horses and all the other good help that he had. That's cowboy way right there.
That's right. Well, thank y'all for coming on. We sure appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Don't forget, we got some caps out now. Cowboys of the
Yeah,
Osage
I'm
podcast.
not even wearing one
Well, you
either.
got the Ben Johnson.
Yeah, I got the Ben
Cowboy
Johnson
Museum cap
I know,
on.
I know.
Call us up on Ben Johnson CowboyMuseum.com.
Yeah.
They're available on there, or call the place here, and Anna, she'll get you one sent out. Anna runs the place for us.
Yep.
She does a good job too.
Yeah. About time she did something. Huh?
Yeah, about time she did something around here. All right, we'll see everybody next week.